Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, staring at the display screen that showed 3 small vessels floating in the darkness of space. His ship, the Dominion's Will, was 15 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy entire planets. The 3 ships ahead looked like toys compared to his mighty vessel. "Sir, we have detected the alien ships at the edge of their star system," reported Lieutenant Zexon from his station. "They appear to be using primitive chemical propulsion and basic metal construction." Kethvar nodded slowly. This was how it always went. The Zephyrian Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for 300 years. They had conquered 47 star systems and ruled over 200 billion people. Every time they met a new species, the process was the same: show overwhelming force, demand surrender, and watch the aliens submit in terror. "Begin standard first contact protocol," Kethvar ordered. "Charge the main weapons and prepare the surrender message." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this dozens of times before. The weapons officer activated the plasma cannons. The communications officer prepared the message that had been translated into 47 different languages. The tactical officer scanned the alien ships for any signs of advanced technology. "Sir, their ships appear to be very basic," the tactical officer reported. "I'm reading simple fusion reactors, basic computers, and what looks like projectile weapons. Their largest ship is only 300 meters long." Kethvar smiled. 300 meters was barely larger than a shuttlecraft in the Empire's fleet. These aliens would surrender quickly once they saw the power of Imperial technology. "Open communications," he commanded. The main screen flickered and showed the message being broadcast to the alien ships. The words appeared in multiple languages. "Attention, unknown vessels. You have entered space claimed by the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. You will immediately surrender your ships and submit to Imperial authority. Your technology will be evaluated and integrated into the Empire. Your species will be given the honor of serving the Empire. You have 1 hour to respond. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your vessels and your home world." The bridge fell silent as they waited for the response. Usually, alien species reacted with fear and panic. Some tried to run, others begged for mercy. A few attempted to fight, but their primitive weapons never posed any real threat to Imperial ships. But the response that came back was unlike anything Kethvar had ever heard. Laughter. Clear, genuine laughter echoed through the bridge speakers. The sound was so unexpected that several crew members looked around in confusion. "Did they just laugh at us?" asked Lieutenant Zexon. Before Kethvar could respond, a voice came through the communication system. It spoke in perfect Zephyrian, which was surprising since they had never encountered this species before. "Hello there," said a female voice that sounded amused. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Endeavor. Did you just threaten us with those big metal boxes you're flying around in?" More laughter could be heard in the background. Male and female voices were chuckling and making comments that the translation system picked up. "Look at the size of that thing," said one voice. "It's like they're trying to compensate for something." "Check out their plasma cannons," said another. "Are those really plasma weapons? They look like the old Mark IV mining lasers from the history books." "Those energy shields are adorable," added a third voice. "My grandmother had better protection on her garden shed." Kethvar felt his face grow hot with anger. No species had ever mocked the Empire's technology. The Imperial fleet represented the most advanced military force in known space. Their plasma weapons could melt continents. Their energy shields could stop any attack. Their ships were engineering marvels that took decades to build. "Sir," whispered the communications officer, "how do they know our language so well? And how are they analyzing our weapons from that distance?" Kethvar ignored the questions. He was focused on the impossible situation developing before him. These aliens, flying in tiny ships that looked like they were held together with metal, plates, and hope, were laughing at the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers again. Sorry about that. My crew gets a bit excited when we see vintage technology. It's not often we encounter ships using such classical engineering approaches. Vintage technology? Kethvar sputtered. Classical engineering? These are the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Oh, said Captain Chen, and her voice suddenly became very gentle, like someone talking to a child. Oh dear. You really believe that, don't you? The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Something was very wrong with this first contact situation. Aliens were supposed to be terrified, not sympathetic. Let me ask you something, Captain Chen continued. What year do you think it is? By Galactic Standard Time. It is the year 2847 by Imperial Calendar, Kethvar replied stiffly, which corresponds to Galactic Standard Year 3847. There was a pause, followed by some muffled conversation on the human ship. Then Captain Chen spoke again, her voice even more gentle than before. Admiral, I'm going to share something with you, and I want you to stay calm. Your technology stopped advancing about 300 years ago. What you consider your most advanced weapons, we used as industrial tools in the early 2300s. And we stopped using them because we found much better alternatives. Impossible, Kethvar shouted. The Empire has the finest scientists and engineers in the galaxy. Our technology is supreme. Sir, the tactical officer called out urgently, I'm getting some very strange readings from their ships. Their energy. Signatures don't match anything in our databases. What kind of readings? Kethvar demanded. I can't identify the technology, sir. The computer says it's impossible. According to our physics models, what I'm seeing can't exist. Captain Chen's voice returned. Admiral Kethvar, isn't it? Yes, we scanned your command crew when you opened communications. Don't worry, it's completely harmless. We just like to know who we're talking to. You scanned us? Through our shields? The tactical officer was now looking panicked. Sir, that should be impossible. Our shields stop all known scanning methods. Admiral, said Captain Chen, I think we need to have a conversation. A real one. Not the standard surrender or die speech that you've been using for the past 3 centuries. Would you be willing to talk? Really talk? Kethvar looked around his bridge. His crew, the finest officers in the Imperial fleet, looked confused and worried. Their instruments were showing readings that made no sense. Their most advanced technology was being casually dismissed by aliens flying ships that looked like museum pieces. What do you want to talk about? He asked finally. The future, Captain Chen replied. Your future, your species' future. Because right now, you're like a civilization that never invented the wheel trying to threaten people who travel between stars. And frankly, Admiral, we'd like to help you catch up to where you should be. Where we should be. Admiral, you've built an impressive empire using technology that most galactic civilizations abandoned centuries ago. But you've never encountered truly advanced species because you never ventured far enough from home. You've been the biggest fish in a very, very small pond. Kethvar felt something cold settle in his stomach. How small? Your entire empire spans less than 1% of this galaxy's inhabited space, and this galaxy is considered a quiet backwater by most advanced civilizations. The bridge was completely silent now. Even the usual hum of machinery seemed muted. Admiral, Captain Chen continued, we're going to show you something, not to frighten you, but to help you understand what's possible when you stop thinking that what you know is all there is to know. What are you going to show us? The difference between playing with fire and harnessing the power of stars. Admiral Kethvar decided he had heard enough nonsense. These humans, whoever they were, clearly didn't understand the power they were facing. Sometimes aliens needed a demonstration before they would show proper respect to the Empire. Weapons. Officer, he commanded, charge the primary plasma cannon to 50% power. Target an area 1,000 kilometers past the human ships. Yes, sir, replied the weapons officer. Primary plasma cannon charging, target locked. Kethvar straightened his uniform and activated the communication system. His voice carried the authority of 3 centuries of imperial conquest. Human vessels, you seem to misunderstand your situation. The Zephyrian Empire does not make empty threats. You will now witness the power that has brought 47 star systems under our control. This is merely a demonstration. The next shot will not miss. The massive plasma cannon at the front of the Dominion's will began to glow with deadly energy. The weapon was 3 kilometers long and could generate temperatures hotter than most stars. When fired at full power, it could burn through the crust of a planet and reach the core. Even at 50% power, it would create a light show visible from several star systems away. "Fire!" Kethvar ordered. The plasma cannon discharged with a roar that shook the entire ship, a beam of pure energy, brilliant white-hot and wider. Then a city block streaked through space past the human vessels. The beam traveled for thousands of kilometers before finally dissipating, leaving a glowing trail of ionized particles that would be visible for hours. The bridge crew smiled with satisfaction. This demonstration had never failed to impress alien species. The sheer scale of the weapon, the incredible energy output, and the obvious threat it represented usually caused immediate surrender. But instead of panic or submission, the response from the human ship was even more laughter. "Oh, wow," came Captain Chen's voice, now sounding delighted. "Johnson, are you seeing this? Check out their energy dissipation patterns." "I'm on it, Captain," replied another voice. "Analyzing now." Interesting. It's a standard plasma discharge, using magnetic containment fields. Pretty basic stuff. What's the power output reading? About 15 terawatts at peak discharge. Let me check the historical databases. Roughly equivalent to a civilian mining laser from the 2340s. Maybe slightly less efficient due to the containment field design. A mining laser? Captain Chen sounded amazed. They're using mining equipment as their primary weapon system? More voices joined in from the human ship, all talking excitedly like scientists who had discovered something fascinating. Look at that plasma cooling rate. They're losing about 60% of their energy to heat dispersion. And check out those magnetic field generators. They're using brute force containment instead of quantum field manipulation. No wonder their ships are so big. They need massive reactors just to power those inefficient weapons. Admiral Kethvar felt his confidence wavering. The humans were talking about his most powerful weapon the way engineers might discuss an antique machine in a museum. They weren't impressed or frightened. They were studying it, Captain Chen, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. That weapon can destroy your entire fleet with a single direct hit. "Oh, I'm sure it could," Captain Chen replied cheerfully. "If it could hit us. But Admiral, we need to ask you something important. Did your civilization ever develop quantum manipulation technology?" "Quantum what? How about dimensional energy tapping? Exotic matter engineering? Zero-point field generators?" Kethvar looked at his science officer, who shook his head helplessly. "Sir, I don't recognize any of those terms." "That's what I thought," Captain Chen said, and her voice became gentle again. "Admiral, you've built impressive things with classical physics. Really, truly impressive, but you never made the breakthrough to quantum-level engineering." "What breakthrough?" Kethvar demanded. "The breakthrough that every advanced civilization makes when they stop thinking that bigger is better and start thinking that smarter is better. Would you like to see what actual advanced weaponry looks like?" Before Kethvar could respond, something impossible happened on his tactical display. An asteroid roughly the size of a small moon appeared on the screen. It was about 10,000 kilometers away, floating harmlessly in space. "Targeting that asteroid," Captain Chen announced casually. "This is what we call a standard mining operation, though I suppose it might look different to you." The human ship Endeavor, still looking like a tiny metal toy compared to the Imperial dreadnought, didn't seem to do anything visible. There was no charging of weapons, no building of energy, no dramatic display of power. The asteroid simply vanished, not exploded, not broken apart, not vaporized in a shower of debris. It just stopped existing. One moment it was there, a solid mass of rock and metal. The next moment there was empty space where it had been. The Imperial bridge fell completely silent. "Johnson," came Captain Chen's voice, "what was our energy expenditure on that?" "Minimal, Captain. About the same as brewing a pot of coffee." "Good. We don't want to waste power showing off." Kethvar stared at the empty space where the asteroid had been. His instruments had detected no energy discharge, no weapon activation, nothing that could explain what had just happened. "How?" he whispered. "Quantum matter disassembly," Captain Chen explained patiently. "We convinced the asteroid's atomic structure that it would prefer to exist as loose energy in a parallel dimension, much cleaner than blowing things up with brute force." "That's impossible," said the science officer. "Only if you limit yourself to classical physics," Captain Chen replied. "Once you understand that reality is much more flexible than it appears, all sorts of things become possible." The tactical officer was frantically working at his station. "Sir, I'm trying to scan their ships for the weapon that did that, but I can't find anything. According to our sensors, they don't have any weapons at all." "That's because you're looking for weapons that work like yours," Captain Chen said. "Big, obvious, energy-intensive devices that push matter around. We stopped building weapons like that about 400 years ago." "Then what are you using?" Kethvar asked. "Reality adjustment technology." "Why destroy something when you can simply convince the universe that it doesn't need to be there anymore?" Admiral Kethvar looked around his bridge. His officers, trained in the finest military academies in the Empire, looked like children trying to understand advanced mathematics. Their most sophisticated instruments couldn't even detect how the humans had made an asteroid disappear. "Captain Chen," he said slowly, "exactly how advanced is your technology compared to ours?" There was a pause, and he could hear quiet conversation on the human ship. Then Captain Chen spoke again, her voice very careful and kind. "Admiral, imagine that your empire represents the level of technology that exists when a species first learns to make fire. Now imagine meeting a species that builds machines powered by the energy of entire stars. That much of a difference?" "I'm afraid so. Your plasma weapons are actually quite good examples of early energy manipulation. It's just that we've moved on to manipulating the fundamental forces that hold reality together." Kethvar felt something he had never experienced in his long military career: complete technological inferiority. The Empire's greatest achievements were apparently the equivalent of caveman tools to these humans. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we talk about whether your species would like to learn about the real galaxy. Because, Admiral, what you think of as the Galactic Empire is actually just a small collection of systems that never developed far enough to meet truly advanced civilizations." "Truly advanced? You mean there are others like you?" Captain Chen's laughter was warm, but not mocking. "Admiral, in the real galactic community, we humans are considered middle tier at best. There are civilizations out there that would look at our technology the same way we look at yours." The thought was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Admiral Kethvar paced back and forth across his bridge, his mind racing. The humans had just made an asteroid disappear using what they called the same energy as brewing coffee. His most powerful weapon had been dismissed as equivalent to a mining tool from their history books. But he was not ready to surrender the pride of the Zephyrian Empire without using every resource at his disposal. "Communications," he ordered. "Send an emergency message to Imperial Command. Use priority override codes. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement by the entire Second Fleet." The communications officer looked surprised. "Sir, the entire Second Fleet? That's nearly half of our total military force." "Do it," Kethvar commanded. "And tell them to bring the new gravity weapons. If these humans think they're so advanced, let them face the combined might of the Zephyrian Empire." Within 6 hours, Space around the Sol system filled with Imperial warships, 47 massive dreadnoughts, each as large as Kethvar's flagship, 200 heavy cruisers bristling with plasma cannons and missile launchers, nearly 1,000 support vessels, including the new experimental ships carrying gravity manipulation weapons that could tear space itself apart. It was the largest military force the Empire had ever assembled. The combined firepower could destroy entire star systems. The sight of so many massive warships would have made any sane species immediately surrender. The humans responded by sending 2 more ships. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "the humans have been reinforced. They now have a total of 5 vessels in the area." 5 ships? Kethvar couldn't believe it. "We bring nearly 1,500 warships and they send 5? The answer came through the communication system in a new voice, older and more authoritative than Captain Chen's. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Martinez of the United Earth ship Defiant. I understand you've called for backup." "Admiral Martinez," Kethvar replied, trying to sound confident, "you are facing the combined might of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with honor." "That's very kind of you," Admiral Martinez said, and Kethvar could hear amusement in his voice. "But I'm afraid I have orders from Earth Command to handle this situation quietly. We don't want to upset the neighbors." "Upset the neighbors?" "Sarah," Admiral Martinez continued, apparently talking to Captain Chen, "Command says we're making too much noise. Keep this proportional. They want it handled without causing a diplomatic incident." "Copy that, Admiral," came Captain Chen's voice. "I'll try not to hurt their feelings too badly." Kethvar felt insulted. These humans were talking about his massive fleet like it was a minor inconvenience. But he had committed everything to this confrontation. There was no backing down now. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet, "prepare for coordinated assault. Target the human vessels. Fire everything we have." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Plasma beams from 47 dreadnoughts lit up space like miniature suns. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the human ships, their warheads capable of cracking moons. The new gravity weapons activated, creating distortions in space that could crush anything caught in their field. It was the most devastating attack in the history of the Empire. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize multiple planets. No force in known space could survive such an assault. The 5 human ships moved through it like they were dancing. Kethvar watched in stunned disbelief as the tiny human vessels weaved between plasma beams that should have vaporized them instantly. Missiles that could track targets across entire star systems somehow couldn't lock onto ships that were right in front of them. The gravity weapons, which should have torn the human vessels apart at the molecular level, seemed to have no effect at all. Not a single shot connected. "Impossible," whispered the weapons officer. "Our targeting computers have locks on all 5 ships. The weapons are firing correctly, but they're just missing." "How are they moving like that?" demanded the tactical officer. "Those ships should be pancakes from the acceleration forces alone." Admiral Martinez's voice came through the communications again, calm and relaxed. "Nice light show, Admiral. Your weapon systems are actually quite impressive for their tech level. Now, would you like to see what happens when we stop playing around?" "Stop playing around?" Kethvar couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. "You call dodging the firepower of 1,500 warships playing around?" "Admiral," said Captain Chen gently, "you've been firing weapons at us for the past 10 minutes. We've been politely avoiding them because we didn't want to hurt anyone. But we're running out of patience." "Sarah's right," Admiral Martinez added. "Time to wrap this up. Activate quantum entanglement disruptors. Set them to minimal impact. Just disable their technology. Don't hurt anyone." What happened next would haunt Kethvar's dreams for years to come. Every single Imperial ship simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, just stopped. The massive fusion reactors that powered the dreadnoughts went quiet. The sophisticated computers that controlled the weapons systems shut down. The artificial gravity generators stopped functioning, leaving crews floating helplessly. Even the basic life support systems reduced to emergency power. 1,500 of the most advanced warships in the Empire became floating metal boxes in the span of 3 seconds. "What did you do to us?" Kethvar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We convinced your technology that it didn't want to work anymore," Captain Chen explained. "Don't worry, no one is hurt. Your life support is still functioning on backup power, and we'll restore full systems once we've had our conversation." Kethvar looked around his bridge. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across consoles that no longer responded. Officers tried frantically to restart systems that had simply decided to stop functioning. The mighty Dominion's will, pride of the Imperial fleet, was now as helpless as a broken toy. "This isn't possible," he said. "Admiral," said Admiral Martinez, "you keep saying that. But here's the thing about advanced technology. It makes the impossible routine. Your weapons work by applying force to matter. Our technology works by convincing reality to cooperate with us." "You can convince reality?" "Once you understand that what you call physical laws are really just suggestions that the universe usually chooses to follow, all sorts of options open up," Captain Chen added. "We didn't destroy your ships because that would have been rude. We just asked their quantum structures to take a little nap." The scale of what had just happened began to sink in. The Empire's entire military force had been defeated without a single human weapon being fired. Defeated wasn't even the right word. They had been casually switched off like someone turning off a light. "Admiral Kethvar," came Admiral Martinez's voice, "we're going to board your ship now. Don't worry, we're not invading. We just need to have a proper conversation about your species' future. And frankly, it's easier to do that face to face." "Board our ship? How? Our docking systems aren't functioning." "We don't need docking systems," Captain Chen said cheerfully. "We'll just step through your hull. Don't be alarmed when we appear on your bridge. Quantum tunneling can look a bit strange if you've never seen it before. Step through our hull? Solid matter is really just empty space with some energy patterns in it. Once you know how to adjust the patterns, walking through walls becomes as easy as walking through air." Kethvar sat down heavily in his command chair. His entire understanding of physics, warfare, and technology had been shattered in the span of a few hours. The empire he had served for his entire life, the mighty force that had conquered dozens of worlds, had been rendered helpless by 3 humans who talked about impossible feats like they were discussing the weather. "Admiral," he said quietly, "what are you going to do with us?" "We're going to help you," Captain Chen replied. "Because that's what civilized species do when they meet neighbors who haven't figured out how big the universe really is." As Kethvar waited for the humans to materialize on his bridge through methods that violated everything he thought he knew about reality, he wondered if this was how a caveman might feel upon encountering a modern city. Overwhelmed, confused, and dimly aware that everything he thought he knew was about to change forever. Admiral Kethvar had seen many strange things during his long military career, but watching 3 humans walk through the solid metal wall of his bridge was something that would stay with him forever. One moment the wall was empty, the next moment 3 figures stepped out of it as easily as walking through a doorway. Captain Sarah Chen appeared first, looking remarkably similar to the humanoid species the Empire had encountered before. She was followed by a man in what appeared to be a military uniform and a woman carrying what looked like scientific equipment. All 3 moved with casual confidence, as if materializing through solid matter was perfectly normal. "Good afternoon, Admiral," Captain Chen said politely. "Thank you for receiving us. I hope you don't mind us skipping the formal docking procedures." Kethvar stared at the wall where they had emerged. The metal showed no signs of damage, no hole, or opening. It was as if the humans had simply convinced the wall to let them pass through. "How?" was all he could manage to say. "Quantum tunneling," explained the woman with the scientific equipment. "I'm Dr. Elizabeth Harper, xenobiologist and physicist. The molecular structure of solid matter has gaps between atoms. We just expanded those gaps temporarily and stepped through." The man in the military uniform stepped forward. "Commander Torres, Diplomatic Corps. We're here to help you understand what's happening and discuss options for your species' future." Admiral Kethvar looked around his darkened bridge. His officers were staring at the humans with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Emergency, powercast, strange shadows, and the usual hum of advanced technology was replaced by an eerie silence. "You disabled our entire fleet," Kethvar said. 1,500 ships just stopped working." "Yes," Captain Chen acknowledged. "We're sorry about that, but you were firing rather dangerous weapons at us. We had to ensure everyone's safety." "Dangerous weapons?" Kethvar couldn't hide his confusion. "You said our weapons were primitive." "They are primitive," Dr. Harper said gently. "But primitive doesn't mean harmless. A stone axe is primitive compared to modern tools, but it can still hurt someone if they're not careful." Commander Torres activated a small device he was carrying. Instantly, a holographic display appeared in the air above them, showing images, and data that made Kethavar's head spin. "Admiral," Torres began, "we need to explain something important about your technology and your place in the galaxy. This might be difficult to hear, but understanding it is crucial for your species' future." The holographic display showed a timeline stretching back thousands of years. At one end were crude drawings of primitive tools. At the other end were images of technology so advanced that Kethavar couldn't even guess what they were supposed to do. "Every civilization follows a similar path," Dr. Harper explained. "They discover fire, develop metallurgy, learn to manipulate energy, and eventually reach what we call the classical physics plateau." The display zoomed in on a section of the timeline. Kethvar recognized the technology shown there: fusion reactors, plasma weapons, basic energy shields. It was exactly what the Empire used. "Your civilization reached this plateau about 300 years ago," Captain Chen continued. "You mastered classical physics, built impressive ships and weapons, and created a stable empire. That's actually quite an achievement." "But then you stopped," Commander Torres added. "You became comfortable with what you had. You stopped pushing the boundaries of knowledge." "We didn't stop," Kethvar protested. "We continued to improve our technology. Our newest ships are far superior to what we built 3 centuries ago." "You improved efficiency," Dr. Harper corrected gently. "You made your plasma weapons more powerful, your ships larger, your shields stronger, but you never made the breakthrough to quantum manipulation." The holographic display showed another section of the timeline. Here, the technology looked completely different. Strange, beautiful devices that seemed to bend space around them. "About 60% of species hit the same wall you did," Captain Chen explained. "They master classical physics and then get stuck. They can't imagine that reality works differently than they think it does." "What's the breakthrough?" Kethvar asked. "Understanding that what you call physical laws are really just habits that the universe has gotten into," Dr. Harper said. "Once you realize that matter, energy, space, and time are much more flexible than they appear, everything changes." Commander Torres gestured, and his small device began to glow. Before Kethavar's eyes, the device changed shape, flowing like liquid metal but maintaining its internal structure. Then it split into 2 identical devices, both fully functional. "Matter manipulation at the quantum level," Torres explained casually. "I just convinced some of the atoms in my communicator that they'd rather be in 2 places at once." "That's impossible," whispered the science officer. "Only if you limit yourself to thinking that atoms have to behave the way your textbooks say they should," Dr. Harper replied. She pulled out what looked like a simple tool from her belt. "Admiral, may I repair some of the damage to your ship? Just as a demonstration?" Without waiting for an answer, she pointed the tool at a damaged console. The broken components began to flow and reshape themselves, quantum patterns rearranging until the console was not just repaired, but improved beyond its original specifications. "What you just saw," Dr. Harper said, represents what my people. Consider basic maintenance technology. Every human civilian carries tools like this. Kethavar stared at the repaired console. In the Empire, fixing that kind of damage would have required a team of engineers working for days with specialized equipment. The humans had done it in seconds, with what looked like a handheld device. Your weapons, your ships, your entire technology. Base, Captain Chen said gently, represents what we used to build about 400 years ago. It's not bad technology. It's just limited by thinking that reality has to work in specific ways. So, what are we to you? Kethavar asked quietly. Some kind of primitive curiosity? You're a species that's reached a crossroads, Commander Torres replied. You can continue using classical physics and remain limited to this small region of space, or you can learn about quantum manipulation and join the real galactic community. The real galactic community? The holographic display expanded to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Kethavar's eyes widened as he saw the true scale of inhabited space. The Empire's territory, which he had thought covered a significant portion of the galaxy, was barely visible as a tiny cluster of dots. Your empire spans 47 star systems, Captain Chen said. The actual galactic community includes over 12 million inhabited systems, spread across multiple dimensions and parallel realities. Multiple dimensions? Once you understand quantum manipulation, traveling between parallel versions of reality becomes routine, Dr. Harper explained. There are civilizations that exist in dozens of dimensions simultaneously. Kethavar felt something fundamental shifting in his understanding of the universe. How advanced are you compared to the most advanced civilizations? The three humans exchanged glances. Captain Chen answered carefully. In the galactic community, humans are considered middle tier. We're advanced enough to help newcomers like yourselves, but we're nowhere near the level of the truly ancient civilizations. There are beings out there, Commander Torres added, that view our technology the same way we view yours. There are species that have transcended physical form entirely, others that exist as pure consciousness spread across entire galactic clusters. The transcendent collective, Dr. Harper said, exists in over 12,000 parallel dimensions simultaneously. The Void Dancers have learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold reality together. Compared to them, we humans are still children learning our first lessons about how the universe really works. The scale of it was overwhelming. Kethavar had spent his entire life believing that the Empire was the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Now he discovered that they were barely taking their first steps into a universe far more vast and complex than he had ever imagined. What happens to us now? He asked. That's up to you, Captain Chen replied. We can help you make the transition to quantum-level technology. It won't be easy. Your entire scientific foundation will need to be rebuilt, but your people have the intelligence and determination to make the leap. Or, Commander Torres added, you can choose to remain as you are. There's no shame in it. Many species prefer the comfort of familiar technology. Dr. Harper smiled. But Admiral, I think you're going to love hyperspace travel and quantum computing. Once you experience technology that cooperates with you instead of fighting against the laws of physics, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Kethavar looked around his darkened bridge, then back at the three humans who had effortlessly defeated his entire fleet and were now offering to help his people reach unimaginable heights of advancement. Where do we begin? He asked. 6 months later, Admiral Kethavar stood on the observation deck of a human diplomatic vessel, watching something that would have been impossible to imagine when he commanded what he thought was the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Below them, in the cargo bay that was larger than his old flagship, teams of Zephyrian engineers were receiving their first lessons in dimensional engineering. The former Imperial fleet floated nearby, but the ships were barely recognizable. Human technicians had retrofitted them with quantum drives, reality adjustment matrices, and consciousness-responsive control systems. The massive dreadnoughts that once took years to build could now be assembled in weeks using matter compilers that convinced raw atoms to arrange themselves into complex machinery. "Having second thoughts?" asked Captain Chen as she joined him at the observation window. Kethvar laughed, a sound that would have been impossible 6 months ago when he commanded what he believed was the galaxy's supreme military force. "My people spent 3 centuries believing we were the apex predators of the universe. It turns out we were just the biggest fish in a very, very small pond." "The good news," Chen said, "is that there's always room to grow. Plus, your people's organizational skills are actually quite impressive. We could use good administrators as we expand into the Andromeda sectors." Through the transparent aluminum window, Kethvar could see Chief Engineer Zexta working alongside a human technician to install a quantum probability manipulator into what used to be a plasma cannon. Housing, the weapon that could once destroy cities, was being converted into a terraforming tool that could convince barren planets to become garden worlds. "It's remarkable how quickly they're adapting," Kethvar observed. 6 months ago, our best scientists couldn't imagine technology that worked with quantum mechanics. Now they're building machines that reshape reality. "Intelligence is intelligence," Captain Chen replied. "Once your people understood that the universe was much more flexible than they thought, they embraced the possibilities with enthusiasm." A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Captain Chen activated her communication device and a holographic figure appeared. "Admiral Martinez calling from Earth. Sarah, how's the integration program going?" "Better than expected, Admiral. The Zephyrians are natural engineers. Give them another few months and they'll be designing their own quantum-coherent starships." "Excellent. We've got approval from the Galactic Council to begin the next phase. Are they ready for full community membership?" Kethvar stepped forward. "Admiral Martinez, I believe my people are ready to contribute to something larger than idiots themselves." "Admiral Kethvar," Martinez smiled. "Or should I say Regional Coordinator Kethvar now? How are you finding your new position?" The title change had been Kethvar's choice. Leading a galactic empire had seemed important when he thought the galaxy was small. Now that he understood the true scale of the universe, managing the integration of a few dozen star systems into the broader galactic community felt more honest and more meaningful. "It's challenging work," Kethvar admitted. "My people are having to rewrite everything they thought they knew about physics, engineering, and their place in the universe. But they're rising to the challenge." Through the observation window, they could see a group of young Zephyrian scientists working with quantum manipulation tools. One of them had just successfully convinced a piece of metal to exist in 2 locations simultaneously, a feat that would have been considered impossible magic 6 months earlier. "The hardest part," Kethvar continued, "is helping them understand that what we thought was advanced technology was actually a dead end. But once they grasp the concept that reality responds to consciousness and intent, not just brute force, they become incredibly creative." Captain Chen gestured toward the retrofit bay. "Show him the new ship design coordinator." Kethvar activated a holographic projector, displaying the blueprints for a vessel unlike anything the old Empire could have imagined. It was smaller than the old dreadnoughts, but infinitely more capable, powered by dimensional energy taps and equipped with consciousness interfaced navigation systems. "This is the ZGS New Dawn," Kethvar explained proudly. "Designed entirely by Zephyrian engineers using quantum-coherent principles. It can travel between parallel dimensions, manipulate matter at the molecular level, and serve as a mobile research platform for studying exotic physics." "Impressive," Admiral Martinez said. "How long did it take to design?" 3 weeks, Kethvar replied. "Once our engineers understood that they could ask the universe to help them instead of fighting against physical limitations, the design process became incredibly fast." The conversation was interrupted by excited voices from the retrofit bay. One of the engineering teams had successfully activated a consciousness-responsive matter compiler for the first time. The machine was producing complex components simply by having the operator visualize what was needed. "They're like children discovering they can fly," Captain Chen observed with a smile. "In many ways, that's exactly what they are," said Admiral Martinez. "HFY, your people are about to experience something that most species only dream of: true integration into the galactic community. Are you ready for what comes next?" "What comes next?" "We're going to introduce you to some of our neighbors. Species that make human technology look primitive, just as human technology made yours look primitive." HFY felt a familiar mixture of excitement and trepidation. "More advanced than humans?" "Much more," Captain Chen said. "The stellar architects who build stars and planets as engineering projects, the quantum philosophers who exist as pure thought across multiple realities, the time gardeners who tend to causality itself. Don't worry," Admiral Martinez added. "They're very friendly, and they're always interested in meeting species that have made the transition from classical to quantum thinking." A new message arrived, this time from the Galactic Council. Captain Chen read it and smiled broadly. "Coordinator HFY, I have news. The Council has approved full membership status for the Zephyrian systems. Congratulations! Your people are, now, officially part of the galactic community." The significance of the moment wasn't lost on HFY. 6 months ago, he had commanded what he thought was a galaxy-spanning empire. Now he was helping his people take their first steps into a universe so vast and complex that their old empire seemed like a child's toy in comparison. "There's something else," Captain Chen continued. "The Council has a request. They'd like Zephyrian teams to help with the integration of 3 more species that are ready to make the transition from classical physics. They want us to help others, the way you helped us. Your people understand what it's like to think your technology is advanced only to discover there's a much bigger universe out there. That experience makes you ideal guides for other species making the same transition." HFY looked out at his people working alongside humans, learning to manipulate reality itself with tools that responded to thought and intention. 6 months ago, they had been conquerors trying to dominate a galaxy they didn't understand. Now they were becoming teachers, ready to help other species discover the wonder of a universe far more magnificent than anyone could imagine. "Admiral Martinez," he said, "we accept the Council's request. My people know what it's like to have their entire worldview shattered and rebuilt. If we can spare others that trauma and help them embrace the wonder instead, it would be our honor." If summoned by his words, a new ship appeared in the distance. Not human, not Zephyrian, but something else entirely. It seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, its hull shifting through colors that had no names and geometries that hurt to look at directly. "Right on time," Captain Chen said. "Admiral, meet your first teaching assignment. That's a ship from the hegemony of Zanar. They've just discovered quantum manipulation and they're about where you were 6 months ago." HFY watched the alien ship approach, remembering his own confusion and fear when first confronted with technology beyond his understanding. Now he would be the one offering guidance and friendship to a species taking their first steps into a larger universe. "Captain Chen," he said, "thank you." "For what?" "For laughing at us instead of destroying us, for seeing potential instead of just primitive technology, for showing us that the universe is far more wonderful than we ever dared to imagine." Captain Chen smiled. "That's what neighbors do, Coordinator. And now you get to do the same for others." As the alien ship drew closer, HFY prepared to help another species discover what he had learned, that being the biggest fish in a small pond was nothing compared to swimming in an ocean of infinite possibility.